Hello, folks. Glad you stopped by. We'll see how long that feeling lasts. I'm going to speaking on a subject this morning that I'll guarantee that 90% of Christians, mind you, I'm not talking about the world out there in general, but 90% of Christians will not agree with this basic assessment. This going out the gate, I know that. We have let society basically dictate a lot of our Christian morals or Christian standards. It's the old adage, you go along to get along. And we've been in the process of losing this fight for generations now. So I'm going to give you a verse to start out with. There's going to be a whole bunch of verses today. It's going to be one of those messages we're just flipping through the Bible. So if you've got a Bible, please grab it, turn with me to these things, or if you're on your phone, just go with me on this. Proverbs chapter 19. I'm going to read this verse, and then you can make an assessment in your own mind. Obviously, I can't get any physical feedback here, but you can let me know what you think of a verse such as this. Proverbs chapter 19, verse 18. Chasten thy son while there is hope, and let not thy soul spare for his crying. Wow. How many Christian parents have even spanked their kid in their lifetimes? And here it's saying not only spank them, but when they start to cry, just keep on going until you figure the lesson has been taught. It's not a punitive thing in the sense that you're going to just beat them for the sake of beating, that you get off on watching them cry. But there's a lesson that God's trying to impart to us all the way through the Bible. How does he classify the relationship between him and us? There's always one prominent go-to way of which he tries to make this distinction and make this correlation between us. That is always as a father and a kid. Father and a kid. We're the kids, he's the father. And to drive that point home, he has given us, as parents, as it were, he's given us kids so that we can get the lesson between him and us on an experiential level by letting us assume his role as parents, if you please, and he gives us unruly little brat kids, that's us, so that we can see the interplay between him and us as it is played out between us and our kids. It's a great format because it's one that we can all experientially understand and get. It makes sense. And if you say, hey, I'm a single, adult, or we got married and we never have kids. But you were a kid at one point. So at some level, all this is going to hit you like a Mack truck. You can't get away from it. You know what it's like to be a kid. You know what it's like to have kids, one or the other, and in most cases, both. I remember when my kids were growing up, they try to pull the wool over my eyes. They forgot that I used to be a kid at one point. I was doing the same stupid stuff, the same stupid arguments, the same stupid rationale that they're trying to feed me. I've already been there and done that with my parents. Let not thy soul spare for his cry. The kid deserves a licking, give him a licking. Some kids know how to play this game really good. Some kids go into this, well, I'm going to get a licking. Okay, I'm going to show how tough I am. And they'll grit their teeth and, maybe their parent, one smack. And boy, no, it's not getting to me. 2 smacks, oh, okay. 3 smacks, wow, 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 type thing. Other kids, they learn going out the gate. I'm going to start crying before he hits me. Before the first spanking gets here, I'm going to start bawling my eyes out. And that'll engender a lot of sympathy and a lot of, goodwill. And I'll get off easy. The Bible says, don't let that fool you. Because we're not fooling God. When we screw up, when we mess up, when we fail him, as kids, if you please, keeping the metaphor going here, when we do that, you think he doesn't know? Do you think he hasn't heard every excuse in the book? You think he hasn't heard every single solitary rationale and excuse? This is the guy that invented logic. He invented speech. He invented the mind. You're not putting anything over on him. So chastening. What's chastening? We don't even know in this society anymore. Nobody really gets chastened as such. Well, it could be chewing out. It could be a grounding, restraining. Lots of ways to punish someone. Yeah, we have a form of grounding these days. Well, I'm sending you to your room, for 2 hours. Of course, the kid goes in the room. Now he's got his iPad, he's got his iPhone, he's got PlayStation, he's got 5,000 things to do in there. But boy, he had to stay in the room. Ooh, whoop-de-doo. Try 3 months with nothing. And when I say nothing, I mean no phone, no radio, no TV, no PlayStation. Let me go right down the line. I was allowed books. I could read, but that was all. So why don't we as Christians discipline our kids away? There's going to be dozens and dozens of verses throughout this book that says that we as parents have a duty to discipline our kids. Why is it that we as Christians have let society take that away? Oh, you're not supposed to spank a kid. Oh, that's inhuman. That's cruel and unusual punishment. Oh, that shows a lack of love. I mean, once again, we've got 1,000 reasons that we've let society cram down our throats and intimidate us and take this biblical precept away that is good for our kids, but we've let the world take it away and we watch our kids just fritter away. How did it ever get to that point? It's like everything else that goes bad. It's incremental. It's one drip, 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 drip at a time. We didn't want to be viewed as the bad guy. So, well, the mom might say, well, wait till your dad gets home. And the poor dad gets home. He's worked all day. He's tired. He's hungry. He's irritable because he's been chewed out all day, or he didn't get the thing done right, or somebody came down on him and loaded him up with a bunch of stuff. He gets home, his refuge, his little castle, if you please. And the first thing that hits him when he gets in the door, oh, Ronnie over there screwed up today. He got sent to the principal's office today. He deserves a beating. Well, the dad already knew. I got a beating in class. The teacher nailed me. I got sent to the principal's office. The principal nailed me. Then I get home and my mom says, well, wait till your dad gets home. You're going to get another one. So the poor dad gets in there, boy, he's smacked upside the head with this. Now, all of a sudden, with all the other problems he's got in life, now he has to be the disciplinarian too. And it wasn't that my mom never spanked me. I got it probably more from her than I did my dad. But most of the time it was from both. She'd nail me on the spot. And then when I got home, I had to wait for that pleasure. And my dad would lay on me. God's trying to teach us a lesson. So he gives us physical parents that we have to obey or have to adhere to or have to listen to or something. Because he's trying to say, I want you kids to listen to me, God, as you expect your kids to listen to you as parents. That's the whole purpose of this thing here. Isaiah chapter 55, you don't have to turn to it, I'll just kind of say it here, because you've heard it 1,000 times. God says, my ways are not your ways, my thoughts are not your thoughts. So when we try to, take a verse such as this in Proverbs, and God says, chasten the kid, spank the kid, don't get thrown off by the tears and the crocodile tears and so forth. Don't get thrown off by that. Because in God's mind, there is a reason for it. So we come along and we say, oh, gee whiz, I can't spank a kid because these hands are hands of love. And I never want my kid to be afraid of me or afraid of my hands. And I want them to be hands of love and benevolence and comfort. I never want them to be known as a spanking hand or a swat hand and so forth. Oh, no. So in the process, who loses here? Both the parent and the kid. And God knows that. And so he keeps nailing us over and over again. Spank the kid when he deserves it. Keep him in line. Don't let him get away with it. Don't let him run the house because he's going to be so unruly. It's going to be hell on wheels in the house. So we just give in, we acquiesce, and we let it go. Everybody thinks we're right. Most Christians do think it is wrong to spank a kid. Christians. I keep emphasizing that because it's not just the world. The world has corrupted the Christian thinking in this respect to the point that we're no different than the world. When was the last time you see a brat in a grocery store, 2, 3, 4 years old, screaming that he wants this or screaming that he wants that, throwing a tantrum, slobbering and blubbering and snot bubbles coming out and screeching and everything on the aisle because they can't get this or they can't get that. And when was the last time you saw that parent take that kid by the wrist, walk them, frog march them out of that store, swat them on the butt 2 or 3 times, and the kids all going through this whole process, and then march them back into the store? You never see that. The first time somebody sees that, they're dropping a dime on that parent as fast as you can. By the time that parent gets out the door, social services are right there waiting for them. Or there's going to be a knock on the door that night. And there'll be a cop and a social worker standing there saying, well, we have a complaint. Everybody else wants to raise your kid for you. Schools want to tell your kids when they can transgender. They want to tell your kids when they can do this or when they can do that. They want to tell your kids when they can start to learn about sex. They want to tell your kids what they want to be the parent. And if you try to be the parent, good grief, look out. This isn't a very exciting type message. This isn't a very uplifting message. This is not a feel-good message. But that's one of the problems with the church today. Nobody preaches the negative stuff. Well, how can I help you have your best day? Well, how can I help you get over your problems? And all, God misunderstands you. You're not really that bad. And so on and so forth, week in, week out. And so we end up with the church of what Jesus said, I'm going to spew you out of my mouth. You're not hot, you're not cold. I wish you were either hot or cold. You're not. You're lukewarm. So why does God discipline us? Why not just, what's wrong with the concept? Hey, the kid is born. The kid goes through the baby stage into adolescence or, child stage and so forth, gets up into the teen years, fulfill their dream, fulfill their wants and desires, expand their mentality, expand their horizons. Nothing should be limited. Nothing should be kept from them. Just let them experiment. Let them find themselves. What could possibly be wrong with that? How soon we forget that we were kids. If somebody didn't sit on you or clamp you down, what would you have ended up like? I have a real good idea where I would have ended up like. And that was with a whole bunch of discipline that I got, a whole bunch of spankings, a whole bunch of groundings, a whole bunch of losing privileges and so forth. My life was filled with that. And I was still rotten to the core. But at least there was enough in there that at some point God could reach down to me. And I had enough brains and intelligence left that I could respond to that call. And I'm afraid that there's a lot of kids, there's a lot of people on this planet today that if God were to show himself physically, emanate himself right there in person, shake hands with them, eye to eye with them, they wouldn't respond. You say, oh, that's ridiculous. Is it really? Have you read the end of the book? Have you seen how it's going to be at the end of Revelation? When humanity is so mad at God, so angry with God, so PO'd at God, that instead of repenting and turning from their sins, they cry and they shake their fist at God. And they cry for the mountains to fall on them, to hide them from the face of God. How do you get to that point? You've seen the 100-pound hailstones. You've seen the ocean turn to blood. You've seen vegetation get wiped out. You've seen the locusts, the horsemen and so forth coming up out of the bowels of the earth and tormenting mankind. You've seen all this, and you've seen the book of Revelation unfold. And even with all that, you've seen Satan get expelled from heaven. You've seen his angels and his demons fall into this earth and wreaking havoc and just doing everything they can because they know that their time is done. And in the midst of all that, you've got literally millions of people on this earth shaking their fist at God. Let the mountains fall on us to hide us from his face. It's not going to work. They're toast. We got to that place because of drip, 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 one step at a time. God says, I'm not going to put up with this forever. There comes a point you got to either make up your mind one way or the other, or that's it. Proverbs chapter 3. Proverbs chapter 3. Verse 11. Proverbs 3:11. My son, here's the analogy again, the dad, the kid, parent, kid, same analogy. My son, despise not the chastening of the Lord, neither be weary of his correction. For whom the Lord loveth, he correcteth, even as a father the son in whom he delighteth. You see the oxymoron of that verse? Whom he loves, he chastens. We don't think like that. We are so programmed that if we love a kid, that means, oh, we can't discipline them. We can't chew them out. We can't spank them. Oh, because we love them. God says, I love you to death. Nobody can love you more than I do, God says. As a consequence, I'm going to beat your butt every chance you need it, or every time that you need it. That doesn't make any sense to us. So we flip back to Isaiah again. My ways are not your ways. My thoughts are not your thoughts. So take us out of the equation, because we're going to screw it up every single time. We're never going to get it right. It doesn't make any sense to us that if you love a kid, you're going to spank the kid. That is so foreign and so alien to us, it doesn't even compute. Now, we might give them a stern warning. Ooh, we might reprimand them. We might lecture them. But corporal punishment, a spanking, a whoop upside the head, a kick in the butt, are you nuts? We can't do that. We're a civilized society. And besides, I love my kids. Really? From God's perspective, you don't. If you refuse discipline as the parent, if you don't demand respect as the parent, God says, don't tell me about how much you love him or her. Forget it. I'm not buying it. Hebrews chapter 12. Hebrews chapter 12, beginning at verse 6. Here we go again. Another verse to back up one we just looked at a minute ago. For whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth and scourgeth. You know what scourging is? That's a whip. And in most cases, it's a whip, leather thongs with little bits and pieces of metal or bone on the end of it. That's a scourging. That's what Jesus was subjected to. That's what lacerated his back. That you could just, the skin is split. You see the tendons, you see the muscles, you see the bone. He was scourged, not reprimanded, not a stern talking to. Whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth and scourgeth every son whom he made or who he receiveth. Makes no sense to us, does it? Like I said at the very, very beginning, 90% of Christians are going to balk at this and say, you're wrong. Oh, that's just old fashioned. Oh, we're way beyond that now. I'm reading as far as into the New Testament as I can possibly get. There's only a few more books left before the end of the book. You don't get any more New Testament than this. Jesus has already died on the cross. You can't say, well, it's a different dispensation. Things were different in the Old Testament. They're different in the New Testament. I'm right dab smack at the tail end of the New Testament here. He loveth whom he chasteneth. He scourgeth every son whom he loves. I can't get my head around it either, but I can't ignore it because it's there. Well, why else does he discipline us? Proverbs chapter 29. Jump back there again. There's a whole bunch of Proverbs. That's if you want to raise a kid, if you want to get along with your wife, if you want to just learn how to live life, go to Proverbs. Man, that's just chock full of practical, one little sentence things. It's great. Proverbs 29, verse 15. The rod, again, we had scourging a minute ago. That's a whip. Now we've got a rod. A rod is a lot different than just a little willow, little branch thing. I remember we lived in Eastern Canada and I was, a young kid. That was their favorite thing. We had willow trees and willow branches all over the place. And when the spanking and the beating was going to commence, it was my job to go out there and cut a little willow branch out. That's a little, like about the size of this pen in diameter. And it's about 3 feet long, cut it. And I'd have to bring it back in, hand it to my mom or dad. And they were doing it. And you'd hear that sound as they're, rushing it through the air. And it was not my first whipping. And so you could just tell by the sound, you knew that pain was coming. You knew that this was going to hurt. So they'd have you bend over their knee, drop your britches, and down it would come. And they wouldn't do it enough to split skin or draw blood. You might get a little welt or two, a little raised thing where it, puffs up a bit. You might get that. But they never went nuts. And God doesn't either. He'll give you whatever you need to get your attention or get you back on track. The rod and reproof give wisdom. Oh, wow, that's a novel idea. The rod and reproof give wisdom. You mean there's no other way I can get wisdom? Well, James tells you, if any man lack wisdom, let him ask of God. You see, most of us don't do that, do we? We don't ask God for wisdom. We've got it all figured out. My ways are my ways. My thoughts are my thoughts. I don't need God. I can function. I wake up in the morning. I go to the restroom. I can brush my teeth. I can take a shower. I can eat. I don't need God as such. I know how to get to work. I know what to do with my job when I get there. I know what I do when I get home. Who needs God? So if I want wisdom, I'll read a book or I'll ask somebody who's maybe smarter than me. We don't ask God. That's the problem. God says, yeah, if you lack wisdom, ask of me, I'll give it to you. Trouble is, we don't ask. And so God says, hey, I've got reproof and I've got a rod. That'll teach you wisdom. So the choice is ours. How do you want your wisdom? Asking God? We're waiting for the rod and reproof. Scary thing about that one is when you ask God, maybe that's when he's going to give you the rod and reproof. But that would rattle around for a second in your brain. Point is, nobody likes this stuff. Nobody likes to be disciplined. Nobody likes to be spanked. Nobody likes to be put down. Nobody likes to be singled out. I get that. And how do I get that? Because I was a kid too. I get that because I was a parent too. So I've seen it on both ends. God's trying to get us to understand, look, he's the dad, we're the kids. Whatever dumb, stupid, ignorant things that you did as a kid, you are doing with God as a child of God. And he has to shape you up. That's all. He's not doing it because he's bored. He's got nothing better to do. It's not like he's sitting up there with a note card or a pad Say, oh, they screwed up here. Oh, here, let me write that one down. Oh, they blew it again. Holy, look at this. This guy, I can't believe this. No, he doesn't have to do that. And that's not what he's doing. But he is definitely aware when we do screw up, when we do mess up, when we do sin. He's aware of that. But he's not just sitting there waiting to pounce on us. Oh, I get a chance to beat him. Oh, I get a chance to spank him. Oh, I get a chance to put him in timeout. Oh, I get a chance. That's not what, no parent likes to do that. Every single time that I, as a parent, had to enforce discipline, I didn't like it. I didn't say, oh, goody, 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 they screwed up again. Now I get to play parent and I get to play bad guy and inflict punishment on them. Now, from the kid's perspective, that may have been my whole purpose in life, but it wasn't. And it's not God's purpose in life just to nail you every time you blow it. He's got better things to do. He's got sunsets and sunrises to make. He's got cloud formations that he would rather play with. He's got a gazillion, trillion, gigabillion atoms and molecules that he has to juggle and keep everything together going. He's got better things to do than just sit there and hope and watch and wait and look for you to blow it. That in itself would be a full-time job for him. Like I said, he's got better things to do than that. So the rod and reproof give wisdom. Proverbs 22. Proverbs 22:15 says, foolishness is bound in the heart of a child. That's the definition of a kid. Foolishness. They're ignorant, they're stupid. I'm not talking intellectually or IQ wise. It just, there's no restraint. There's no training wheels. We're just stupid. That's all. Foolishness is bound in the heart of a child. But the rod of correction shall drive it far from him. I don't feel sorry at all for parents who have, 20, 25, 30-year-old kids that, don't respect them, don't visit them, don't acknowledge them as, mom and dad type thing, that they're using him as a doormat. Oh, I'm short this month. Can you, float me a loan, or can you, give me some money, or can you do this? I don't feel sorry for those parents at all. Because there was a time when that kid was still teachable. Because trust me, there comes a time when they're not teachable. You're okay up to 10, 12, 13 years old maybe. Once they hit puberty, if you haven't got them under control by then, you've just about lost it, unless God himself comes in and gives grace to this whole mess. But that parent that allows that kid to exercise their self-expression and to exercise their formative years. When the kid tells the parent to go, fly a kite. When the kid tells the parent, no, I'm not going to do this. When they disregard curfews, when they disregard bedtimes, when they disregard this, that, or the other thing, and the kid just shines them on. And that parent says, oh, isn't that so cute? Oh, they're so self-willed. Isn't that nice? Oh, I don't want a robot as a kid. Oh, I enjoy this. Oh, look at, they've got spunk. They've got character. Yeah, Now you take that same kid, 20, 25, 30 years old, sponging off you, disrespecting you. How do you feel now? because you've already lost the battle. It's way too late for you. And I don't feel sorry for those parents at all. And you know what? I don't think God does either. Because he's not going to tolerate that acquiescence. He's not going to tolerate having that kid tell him, kids being us, he's not going to go along with that. Most of you have been Christians long enough to know that if you screw up, God's going to come down on you, period. Now, you might not know the method, the time, the duration, the form of that comeback from him, but you know it's coming. You know it's coming. Psalm 119. It's another reason for God to discipline us. Psalm 119. Verse 71. Psalm 119:71 says, "It is good for me that I have been afflicted." Why? How in the world can that be good for you? Oh, let's see. That I might learn thy statutes. In other words, there comes a point the kid's not learning, doesn't want to listen. So affliction comes. The affliction gets their attention. The affliction could be in the form of, like I said, grounding, loss of privileges, short bedtime, spanking. There's a million different ways. But the purpose of it is to get the attention of the kid, to make them stop and think what they're doing, to realize there's a right way and a wrong way. That's why God does it to us. So we stop and think. Is that to say that every single solitary bad things that happens to us is because we've screwed up? No. God throws in Job to show us that. Nobody got dumped on more than Job. And it was not because Job was the ultimate screw up. Sometimes bad things happen to people. Maybe it's Satan. Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, walketh about as a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may stand against the wiles of the devil. Sometimes the junk that happens in your life is because of a satanic attack. Sometimes it's your own self-will, your own stupid decisions that you make. I got diabetes now. Is that a punishment from God? I don't think so at all. You know what I think it is? It's because in my formative years, I ate too much sugar. That was it. There's no big spiritual wonder here. There's no big spiritual lesson here. I ate too much sugar. So I get into my 40s, 50s, 60s years old, boom, bow. Guess what? I've got diabetes. Shock. No, it's not. So my arteries around my heart got clogged and plugged up. So they got to go in and they put stents in there. Is that a punishment from God? Not always. Maybe it's because I ate Big Macs and French fries and stuff my whole life. And finally, the body just couldn't keep up with it. And the plaque built up. And the arteries stiffened up and so forth. No big spiritual thing here involved. Sometimes we go through things just because of our own stupidity, our lack of good choices. But other times, it is a spiritual thing. So you as a Christian, you've got to kind of sort this thing out. You've got to spend time alone with God. When something that you perceive as bad, go to God, ask him, is this because I screwed up? Is this because of decisions I made 50 years ago? Gee whiz, a couple gets divorced. Wow, is that a punishment from God? Probably not. Maybe it's because one or two, one or both of the parties stepped out on each other and they committed adultery. Gee whiz, who couldn't see a divorce coming here at some point? So you as a Christian, you have to stay in communion with God. You have to keep asking yourself, is this because of my stupid decisions? Is this because of my mistakes? Is this because I was just an idiot? Or are you trying to teach me something, God? And I'll guarantee he'll let you know. In some way, in some fashion, at some point, he'll let you know. Proverbs 23. Proverbs 23, beginning of verse 13. Withhold not correction from the child. Okay, we've already talked about that. For if thou beatest him with the rod, he shall not die. Someone said, well, yeah, I know somebody who got killed. Well, there's an element of common sense built into the English language. There's an element of common sense in our conduct. Yeah, can you beat a person to death with a rod? Yeah, it happens all the time. I could take a Louisville Slugger, a baseball bat, come up, boom, whoop you up the side of the head. You're going to die. We're talking about a spanking, a beating, a scourging. Jesus didn't die from the scourging. Didn't help, but he didn't die from it. He died from all the other junk that was going on around him. Withhold not correction from the child, for if thou beatest him with a rod, he shall not die. Thou shalt beat him with the rod, and shalt deliver his soul from hell. You have a responsibility as a parent to raise that kid. Once those little 26 chromosomes from you and the 26 from your wife or whatever come together, and that child is formed, there is an inherent responsibility on you as the parent to train that child and prepare him for a life with God. Not just to, when he's 18, okay, I've done my part, out he goes. Good luck. No, you have an inherent responsibility as a parent who brought this kid into the world, who nurtured them, fed them, clothed them, taught them, helped them. You have a responsibility, not just till they're 18 or 21. That's when the law says, okay, you're done as such. But I'm talking on a moral thing. Your responsibility as a parent is never done. And if you've got kids that are not saved, who are not children of God as such in that spiritual sense, then you've got a real problem, because you're going to stand before God someday and you're going to have to give an account as to why you didn't do your best to make sure that your kid didn't get to go to heaven. The last one, and I'm leaving out a dozen here, but last one, Hebrews chapter 12. Hebrews chapter 12. Getting in verse 2. Hebrews 12:2, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who, for the joy that was set before him, endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. There was a joy, as stupid as that may sound to us. I mean, he's facing the cross. He's been whipped. He's been lacerated. He's been pummeled. He's been had the snot knocked out of him. He's ready to die. And it says, yet for the joy that was set before him, he knew what was coming. After the Roman soldiers got done with him, after he had to lug that cross up the hill, he knew what was coming. The joy that was before him says that he endured the cross. And he despised the shame. You say, well, what shame? This is the creator of the world. If you got a little crucifix around your neck, or if you got a little crucifix in your wall, the little cross with Jesus on there, I'll guarantee Jesus has a loincloth wrapped around his midsection. In real life, they didn't afford him that privilege. He was up there stark naked. Everybody could make fun of him. Everybody could laugh at him. Everybody could point at him. The shame of the cross. This is the creator of the world. Not just the boss of the world, not just the overseer of the. This is the creator of the world, and he has subjected himself to that level of shame, where mortal man have the power to kill him, to spit on him, to punch him, to whip him and make him bleed, to strip him naked, and that this is the creator of the world, and he subjects himself to that level of shame. It is mind-boggling. I cannot get my head around that. But he did it for the joy that was set before him, that he could reconcile you and me to a righteous and a holy God, that he could watch his children step into heaven, glorified bodies, forever changed, conformed to the image of himself. He endured the cross, and he suffered the shame for you and me. You're a parent. You can make the self-assessment yourself. You don't need me anymore to keep hammering this thing. You know if you've done good, you know if you've done bad. Now, what do you do with that knowledge? Heavenly Father, half the time, I know I say this all the time, but half the time I don't know how to pray on this kind of stuff. I've screwed up so much in my life. I continue to screw up. I don't know what to say or do half the time when I'm in your presence. Oh yeah, I can get up here and I can, spout off for 45 minutes or so on stuff like this. That's great. That's wonderful. But when I'm in your presence, Lord, I don't really have a whole heck of a lot to say. Because you know my heart. I get done with a message like this, and now when I'm in a prayer mode, and I realize that the Lord of the universe is looking at my heart, looking at my thoughts, Where do I go? Where do I hide? I can't ask for the mountains to fall on me from the face of God. I'm his child. I'm open and bare before you. I've got no excuse. So I think I can just simply, basically do what the rest of us Christians should do. Ask your forgiveness for the times that we've screwed up. Ask for wisdom and strength. For those of us who still have little kids who are still pliable, who still need the Lord, who still need understanding and leadership. I had my shot. My youngest kid is basically 50. I don't have the same parental rights or control over the grandkids, so that's basically up to the parents, 99% of that. But I've had my shot. Some worked out okay, some didn't. The ones that didn't, that's on me. Because for the most part, I was a Christian most of their lives, or virtually all their lives. So I've got no excuse. So I stand before you open and bare. I've got no place to hide. I've got no excuses to bring. And I kind of have a feeling that most of us are in the same boat. So Lord, I do ask for forgiveness. I do ask that in some way that you would override my failures, my lack of understanding, my self-will as a parent when my kids were growing up and the times that I screwed up. I would ask, Father, that you would intercede. Although my kids are not kids anymore as such, there always will be to me. But you know what I mean. I pray that you would speak to their hearts, that you would move in their lives and patch up the times that I screwed up with them, to heal the hurts that I put on them, to make up for the lack of teaching and understanding and wisdom that I should have given them, but I didn't. Either through ignorance or self-will or just plain old stupidity. So, Father, I pray for all kids. That includes every single one of us, either as a kid now or was a kid or have kids. Bless us, Lord. Forgive us and help us. But mostly forgive us. In Jesus' name.